and welcome back to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by your sponsor's virtual booth at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partner is committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. So at any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booth from the main agenda page, which includes complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. For those seeking CPE credit today, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and remain on the session for its duration. Polls can be found under the Polls tab on the right-hand side of your console next to Chat. Afterwards, if you are eligible to receive credit, you will receive an email with a link to your certificates. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@argyleforum.com. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would love to introduce our moderator, Shweta Pai, Chief Financial Officer at VCM Products. We are excited to have Shweta and our panelists with us for a discussion titled Bridging the Gap Between Finance, Operations, and Technology in 2026 and Beyond. Welcome, Shweta, and over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Brittany. And everybody, I'm Shweta Pai. As Brittany said, I'm the CFO of VCM Products, and I'm really excited to be here. I've been in finance for about 25 years, and I've often heard that finance is a language of business. But one of the things that we've learned, especially in today's very dynamic landscape, is that language needs to be spoken fluently across not just finance, but operations and IT to drive real long-term value. And that's what we're really here to talk about today, about how to bridge that and kind of have all 3 groups speak fluently. I'm joined by 3 leaders who are kind of navigating this on a daily basis. And I'd love to, and I'm really excited to hear from them. I'd love to invite them to introduce themselves. I'll start with Alonso, if you can introduce yourself, then Michael, and then Thomas, and then we'll get started after that. Alonso?
Thank you, Shweta. It's a pleasure to be here participating with Argyle again. My name is Alonso Ramos. I'm the CFO of the Intake Group. This is a manufacturing company in Chicago area with operations in Mexico and the US. I've been a CFO in the last 3 roles, mostly in the manufacturing area. And previous to that, I was 23 years with Colgate-Palmolive in different divisions and countries in kind of a rotation program to the very different finance positions across the world. And again, I mean, thanks very much for the invitation. And back to you, Shweta.
Great. Mike, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good morning, and thanks, Shweta. Michael Mance. I work for a healthcare company, medium-sized in the Chicagoland area, headquartered. We are a national nephrologist in clinical locations in the healthcare space. I've been with the company a little bit over 5 years. Previously, have about a total of 35 years of experience. Cut my teeth originally in public accounting and audit and tax, and then moved into leadership roles at various Fortune 500 companies predominantly, and then did some consulting before my role here. But glad to be back and to see some similar faces in that. So thanks, Shweta.
Yeah, absolutely. And over to you, Thomas, if you can just quickly introduce yourself too.
Great, my turn. Okay. My name is Thomas, CFO at Impellum Group. It's a $500 million plus workforce transformation technology company. I've been CFO in several industries in the past, and I've had finance, operations, and technology departments reporting to me along points of my tenure. So really looking forward to this discussion here today.
Wonderful. Sounds like we'll have a really interesting discussion here. Okay, so to kick things off, I want to get started with just talking about how do we get everybody to kind of work together? Because, as we know, sometimes finance, we look at the P&L. Ops looks at the factory floor, if you will. Tech looks at the tech stack, or IT looks at the tech stack, and it can sometimes feel like three different companies working together. How do these, how do you make them kind of work together, especially in times when they have fallen out of sync and the gears have kind of come to a halt? How do you work to build these teams together? Alonzo, let me turn to you first, and then we'll have either Mike or Thomas jump in as needed.
Oh, thank you, Shweta. And it's a very interesting question. I think it's when you were mentioning that I was remembering the experience that I have in real life in my previous job, in which we were doing the integration of a recently acquired company.
Right.
It was very ambitious in terms of all the synergies that we were trying to achieve. Back at that time, I was the CFO and didn't have operations and or IT under my belt as I do now. And I could see the problem that we have in the dynamics is that we have different agendas, pretty much.
Yeah.
Each department have different goals,
Right.
and when we try to integrate the operations, the manufacturing people where they were concerned about the operating the machines, making the process efficient, incorporating into the normal production that we already had. So it's bringing the technology that we acquire and make it efficient within our current technology. IT have a very different problem. The problem was to integrate all the operations that were in a legacy system into the parent company ERP system. And that pretty much involved every area of the company, involved the production, sales and distribution, accounting, controlling, every single aspect of the business needed to be integrated. And for them, I mean, that they required a lot of work in terms of preparation, testing, transition, training people, many times the same people that needed to be involved in the other projects. And for finance, finance have a completely different target. They were part of the due diligence and they have certain
Yeah.
expectations regarding achieving savings, synergies, and whatnot. And when they were tasked with the integration, the most important was to integrate the accounting and achieve the financial results. So the problem that we faced there is that nobody was in sync because everybody was given a different priority. And even if they're not given that priority, they think differently because they have kind of speak different languages and have different objectives in mind. So that was an example of integration that didn't started very well in terms of everybody was kind of putting from their own department, their own group, and were not collaborating with the team. Um, how this was improved, although it took a lot of time, first of all, to bring it back into place. But I think the biggest issue was not only the objectives, that there was not an owner per se of the business of the project. Even though there are different departments interacting, it is necessary to have a leader that will bring the group together and make sure that they uh, pursuing the set objective. In the case that I'm referring to, it was actually my group in finance where we took the leadership. I think it was convenient or ideal to have finance doing it because finance could understand the interactions of the technology of the IT side and how it will impact every other area. They could see a little bit of the
Hmm.
overall impact for the company. And on the operations, although it is different than finance, it can understand how the operations could needed to be integrated in the ERP and also understand or pursue the savings and synergies that operations have from the beginning. So this at the end. I mean, this is a situation I experienced. Finally, we were able to integrate. It took over a year. Took much longer than necessary because there was a lot of discrepancy. And I think the major issues that we faced was that everybody was going into having a different agenda, different objectives. There was not a clear communication or be able to speak the other department's language, so to speak, and there was not a clear leader defined for the entire project. Back to you, Sweta. Thank you.
No, that's very true. And, the tension is something that we see across industries. I don't know if, Mike or Thomas, you guys have anything to add? I know you guys are from completely different industries. Is that something that is consistent? And, have you guys solved it in a similar way?
Yeah, I would say, this leads into really kind of the next question we have, where to piggyback on what Alonso said is, I believe you need an executive sponsor. I think all departments throughout the organization need to be involved in the project plan, whether an acquisition integration, as Alonso mentioned, an ERP implementation,
Yep.
also with the utilization of AI, just ensuring that the team is utilizing the correct data, and more importantly, the security. But also, we've had our IT team do AI training, whether it's been uh, from our ERP system or FP&A module. But I think the transparent communication throughout the organization, not just the accounting and finance team, but obviously IT and other business leaders, I think is, you need to have that transparent communication and, like weekly status meetings. I think that's really important.
How are you guys working? And this goes to your point. The second question, the how do you do that without doubling up on work, or how do you manage those kind of responsibilities kind of changing, especially in today's environment?
Yeah, good question. It's just meeting before the project, who's going to be responsible. Um,
Right.
but there also may be other areas that accounting and finance and or IT or operations, where part of the project or integration, there might be some opportunities for process improvements there, right? From a technology perspective, I kind of break it down: people, process, and technology. I think if you cover those three collectively, I think that's paramount in having good, successful integrations, implementations with these types of projects.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. Thomas or Alonso, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So I want to just finish off the point, question one, just for the thing, because I love what Alonso said, where finance took the lead. And I think, we're biased here, but like finance, less of the control, being more conductor. I really like the idea of creating a shared outcome per initiative. And so that's where you have a fallout of sync between IT operations and finance. So everyone has a shared outcome per initiative, and you aligned around a single clear narrative. What is the problem we're trying to solve, and what decisions and outcomes improve if this thing actually works? So I think that really keeps everyone together. And I love what Michael said around this second question. Finance is going to have been and will consistently own more of the tool prioritizations, the vendor economics, value tracking after go live. And we've all seen it. IT worries that finance only thinks about cost, right?
Right.
And then ops is worried that finance is going to slow down execution, right? They want to run. They want to run. And
Yeah.
finance, we worry that we've got the accountability and explaining the variances every month without the authority to actually make any decisions. So I love what Michael said about the business cases. Just split up the role clarity up front. Finance, you guys own the business cases, the value tracking. You get decisions on whether you're going to kill it, scale it, bring the cat in frame.
He jumped off.
You can't stop it. Okay, IT, the architecture, they own security, they own integrations, right? Ops, they own the adoption process change and behavior change. So I think just what Michael said is really great, and I'll just add that into to his top. But so the cat's stealing the show. Love it.
No, but Thomas, thank you for all the to your point, there's always that challenge or friction, for lack of a better word, where people do think, hey, everybody's talking about costs and that's all finance is looking at, but we know that we can't cut our way to growth, right? We can't cut our costs way and still have growth. So how do we kind of look at technology investments and look at it, to understand which ones are need to be retaught or configured versus which ones we're not? And do we need to think about ROI, or are there other metrics that we need to think about? What are your thoughts? And I'll start with you, Thomas, and then we'll move to Mike and Alonso.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if I'm thinking about cost optimization and priorities and what do I want to protect in a business, what do I want to rethink, I think of technology particularly I look at it in three categories. Okay, the first one, I really want to protect those decision critical systems. Think about anything that impacts revenue visibility, anything in my cash or liquidity forecasting, capacity planning, or anything that could detect risk early. So like if you think about the forecasting I mentioned before, Workday Adaptive. My company uses Workday Adaptive. It allows us to scenario forecast, allows us to look ahead. If you're talking about pipeline visibility, you could talk about Salesforce, HubSpot. Liquidity and treasury, we use Calibra, but there's a bunch of other systems out there. So that's my first category. Got to protect that with everything I got. That second category, I'm going to look into it. That what I consider like my execution enabling system. So workflows, reporting, productivity tools. So I think about it like this. If I would keep it, if they eliminate a lot of manual work and they're scalable without headcount, I would rethink it if it requires those workarounds, or like if I got to take it out of the system, put it in Excel, do my little cat work on my computer, and then push it back out. I'm rethinking that. And then my third category is the ones I want to cut first. These are the dashboards that have like no one logs into, which, we track those. We see them. You got the duplicate data visualization layers. So if I've got, like, for example, if we use Workday here, we've got Prism as a visualization tool inside Workday, but also we have Databricks as a visualization tool. Like, hey, am I paying for consumption based on Databricks? Maybe I shut down a couple dashboards there because they refresh every day and no one's looking at it. Also tools that generate just old stuff, not really actionable related stuff. So my framework, if I ask myself 4 questions, if I can't answer yes to at least 2 of them, scrap it. Does it reduce my time to decision? Does it improve my decision confidence? And does it scale without headcount? And my last one, does it surface my risk earlier? So it's all about seeing around the corner. If I can't answer yes to at least 2 of those, I'm looking to cut it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that framework as well. Alonso and Mike, do you guys have anything to add?
Well, Thomas said very well. The only thing I will add is that in many projects it's easier to identify the ROI and if there's a benefit of it, and make a change, make a decision. And there are a few ones that are a little more complex, in which case I look for somebody in the industry. I mean, we partner with other companies, peer companies, or sometimes a customer, sometimes a vendor. But look for somebody that has done it already in real life, and see, I mean, use their experience to have a better educated decision before you proceed, especially when there's something a little more substantial or a little more impactful for the organization. That would be my recommendation. But yeah, thank you, Thomas, for your insights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, I think, if you look at it from your team's perspective, you know, making process improvements, and making the team work more efficiently and effectively. Um, I think that also enhances the employee retention. And then you're investing and retaining in these employees to make their work more straightforward versus kind of, same old mundane tasks.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And, you know, yeah, the once we deciding what to protect or what to actually build out, those are trade-offs that you need to navigate with a lot of care. And there are many make or break moments for success. Alonso, what are some of these make or break moments that you've seen that are critical to project success, or what are these kind of trade-offs, or kind of, hey, this was the pivot that really made this project successful, or it really, took a nosedive after that. What were some of those moments that you can share?
I think it's all about accountability with the teams, and it starts with the basics. I mean, it's referring to the previous example I was given on the integration of an acquired company. Uh, it started with the basics. I mean, we set up a leader, which was in finance, set up weekly meetings, set up the whole calendar with a project timelines, responsible, all that. And although I mean it's very basic, but just having that type of meeting and reviewing every task, every pending activity with the entire team, not to point finger, but to just bring accountability into place. That helped the project a lot and help focus. And if a task needed to be maybe added, maybe deleted, maybe updated, I mean, that was the opportunity to do it because the rest of the team, even if it was not their area, they can express their opinion. Maybe they know somebody in their area that would affect another area. Those are the conversation we were missing completely. It's same for the cross-functional teams, and it was my case, and that at that time that the teams were in very different locations. It, it, it worked very well for us to bring them together once in a while. Not that the work cannot be completed remotely, but once you are together, is the focus. The people can focus more on the activity, and it was very beneficial for everybody. Now the other thing is that talking about manufacturing industry. So in the manufacturing industry, you're sitting in another location and trying to understand the operation that is happening in the plant in somewhere else without being there, it's not ideal. I mean, it's much easier to visualize what is happening in the plant, see how the process is going, and from there is way more easier to understand how each person could interact with the process and make it better. We also brought actually an expert that has worked in this type of projects before and also give us their perspective. Sometimes people need to break the kind of the mental blocks that this cannot be done or this is too difficult or this is and hear from somebody that has done it and has done it successfully and can make it work. It also changes a little bit the mood as well. So those are some of the recommendations of things that we did that made us successful. Again, I mean, is to create the tools, instruments to keep the people accountable. That's fundamental. And kind of promote direct or in-person interaction, depending on your industry, or simply adapt to your industry to see which other initiatives will make sense. And the third one is, if necessary, or if you think it could be a benefit, bring somebody else and try to work out on eliminating some of the mental blocks that sometimes these type of projects could be very overwhelming for people that already have a day-to-day job to do, and then you come up with bringing a lot of more responsibilities into place. It could create a little bit of stress on the team. So it is important to make them understand that there's objective, a final, a target there. And once the target is achieved, everything, the team is going to reap the benefits in many different areas. Thank you. Back to you,
No,
Swetha.
that totally makes sense. Mike, Thomas, have you guys had other tricks kind of that you've used, to bring something that was difficult to fruition or address whatever hurdles you guys have faced in the projects?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Alonso spelled it out very well.
Yeah.
Just at a high level, I think, when he mentioned the team, I think you need to really have realistic deadlines too.
Yeah.
People have their day-to-day job unless you're bringing a third-party consultant in, which is obviously costly, but realistic timelines and, realistic achievements. It's almost like utilizing kind of SMART goals within, a project,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Very true.
but well said, Alonso.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I
Great.
echo that. They both
Yeah.
said it
Go
really
ahead,
well.
Thomas.
Nothing more to add.
Okay. Awesome. So, one of the things that us in finance we're constantly grappling with is, how do you align this with our traditional kind of financial planning and budgeting cycles? And how does this impact, the change in the pace of today, where I feel like a lot of times our budgets are obsolete by February, right? And you're kind of doing a much more of a more recent forecast, which then gets reforecasted. So how how do you guys address this kind of broader changes and uh, tech support and new technology, and bring it into within and align it with our cycles within finance? Mike, I'll turn to you, and then, Thomas and Alonso, you guys can jump in.
Yeah, I think this kind of encompasses, several things we discussed here already today. We implemented an FP&A module that's synced up with our ERP, that has made the process from an FP&A perspective more streamlined, real-time data versus, doing it in Excel. And in our industry, our revenue is based on patient count, and that's relatively consistent. So our budgets are not really overly fluctuating, to your point, where they go stale after Q1. But, utilizing and training people on the FP&A module, ensuring that the data that is in the ERP system is solid, because, garbage in is garbage out. But training people on the module, and then we have started utilizing the AI functionality slowly, where really provides really nice analysis. But once again, you really need to double check it. But that is freeing up time, making things more streamlined, and it really provides more ownership and accountability throughout the organization, whether it's, operations, facilities, the sales team, etc. So that's where we've seen a lot of utilization with the new FP&A module that we implemented.
That's really interesting. Um, And how have you guys, how has the buy-in, or how did you guys manage the buy-in to use that? That's something that, I feel like that's always the biggest challenge here.
Yeah, I mean, collectively, I think, where we're going, with all the technology that we've mentioned here, it's a need, or you're going to be caught behind, once again, versus doing manual tasks. But investing in the technology, and it's been a big win for us, versus doing a lot of things manually, which you have human error if you're using Excel or spreadsheets. But collectively, we've had the buy-in throughout the organization, kind of like we discussed earlier, have an executive sponsor, but making that investment in technology as well as our team.
Right. Thomas and Alonso, do you guys have anything to add?
Sure. Yeah. So I think you're right on around annual budgets. They assume stability. So in some cases, maybe if you're in the HR space, where Michael, it's works throughout, or we've got somewhere else. But that's broken. We've got the variances that comes too late, and then we also love to be precise. So precision's often rewarded over the ability to adapt. So where we're moving to is that the budgets are really guardrails. Otherwise, hey, for bonus counts, they're the gospel, but ultimately they're guardrails in the business. You got your forecast, so they've got to be updated monthly at the minimum or continuously, depending on what software you've got. As Michael mentioned, he's got his FP&A tool on top of his ERP system, so really streamlines the process there. Move more into leading indicators. That's going to drive your planning, pipeline quality, utilization, pricing pressure. So really for the planning becomes shorter, more frequent, and it's more that decision-focused push into the future. And I know you asked about some systems. You got Workday, SAP, NetSuite, all that align real-time actuals and forecasts. You got Tableau, Power BI. That gives you those dashboards that help you push the decisions forward. Salesforce or HubSpot really give you that pipeline quality inputs. And if you really want to get into rolling scenarios, I'm not sure, Michael, what your team uses, or Alfonso, but we use Workday Adaptive. I know there's Anaplan out there, a lot of other cool tools that could be considered pricey. It just depends on the user base. But I see that as a bolt on to what Michael and you had said for this question.
With this kind of shorter forecasting cycles, how do you guys tie in broader long-term strategy? And this is just a question from me personally, because that's honestly one of the challenges we have is we're constantly doing, forecasting on a much more regular basis. As you said, Thomas, it's a monthly cycle, if not not sooner, because depending on how fast things change. But it's easy to kind of get into that rhythm and forget the bigger picture, the strategy. What are some things that you guys have seen or done to make sure we don't lose sight of the long-term strategy while we're kind of churning in real time?
I'll just say real fast and then pass on. You do the 3 to 5 year plan in the same cycle. Like you could do it every quarter, every 6 months, but you have a continuous loop on that as well. So you never lose focus because you're always moving back into what does it look in 3 to 5 years. So I'll leave with that. Let Alfonso and Michael take it away.
Yeah, on our side in the healthcare, we don't plan out 3 to 5 years. It's annual basis because it's based on patient growth. What will increase it obviously is acquisitions, which we discussed before, which there has been opportunity in our space, but it's basically the same model that we've discussed. So that's in our healthcare space is what we've seen.
Yeah, I think the part that is a little tricky is to create contingency plans here and I think Thomas already mentioned it somehow, not to be too repetitive, but I think what happens is like in the manufacturing so especially the last year, there have been manufacturers that have changed completely the landscape of manufacturing.
Yeah.
and I mean, we were not prepared, or pretty much nobody, I think, was prepared for it, and affects the whole supply chain, and can throw completely the business model in many different ways, and many times it's not easy to react
Right.
in a short period of time, depending on your
Yeah.
industry. It's not that you can adapt or change production
Right.
from one country to another, just move the machine. It doesn't work like that. It's more complicated. So um, that's um, that's the part that is quite difficult, because it's we have been forced to create contingency plans in order
Yep.
to react to these situations, and align to on a short term and long term basis with
Yeah.
things that we were not expecting at all. So
Yeah.
that's something as well. And if you be a little bit more strategic, I mean, you can think of, and many companies do right now. They're trying to use their crystal ball and try to guess what's going to happen in the future, or how they can be better prepared if the situation continues or it expands, how they can
Yeah.
be better prepared in the future for a situation like that. That would be my
Yeah.
ad. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I mean, I'm in the consumer goods industry, I guess, and it's been rocked by so many macro changes that have hit us that we weren't expecting. And to your points, and Alonso, scenario analysis has become key. Our, 3 to 5 year is redundant or moot at this point. Everything changed. Um, all of our base assumptions changed. So that led us to kind of have to revamp everything. But one thing, and I just want to throw that out there, and we'll go on to the next question. One framework or way of thinking that has really helped us kind of address this has been to apply the kind of the rule of inversion, right? Which is popularized. If it's something that the Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger really talk about, which is around don't focus on necessarily on what are the things you need to get right, but focus instead on what are the things that if you that would have you fail, that will fail, so you will actually focus on avoiding those. The upside kind of takes care of itself. But what are the things that you just cannot have happen? So those are things when we're looking at brands and brand management for consumer goods or manufacturing and supply chain kind of risks. We are looking at it from kind of that inverse, not just how do we succeed, but how would we fail and how do we avoid that? And that becomes kind of not just looking at the ceiling, but also ensuring that we've covered and made sure we're not ever going to hit that floor. Um, and that's just a trick that, given 2025 and the craziness that was that year, just helped us navigate. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as we were thinking this
Mm.
through. So on to kind of, we have only 11 minutes. So I just want to kind of quickly get on to our last question. We've talked about the what, we've talked about the how, but let's talk about who. The CFO of 2030 looks different. And it may
Mhm.
not be, consistent with who we are right now or what the leaders are looking at right now. This kind of goes to all of you guys, but what are some skills and Thomas, I'll have you start. And, what are some must have skills that finance leaders who needs to operate across these silos, bring it together in this dynamic world of changing tech and all that? What are some skills that are must haves um, that we need to think about when we are looking at the CFO of 2030?
All right, great. Yeah, CFO of 2030. All right, so skills, models, capabilities that we need to have. I think about it in 5 different phases here. So the first one is business translation. So that skill of financial expertise, if you're a CFO, you should have it, but it's really turning that and making the complexity, the finance, operations, IT complexity into something that the team can navigate through. So that's your job. That's number one, business translation. The second one is getting comfortable with that imperfect information. Okay, you need to act confidently before that data is complete. And it's super hard for particularly folks in finance because we love data, but you have to get comfortable moving forward with about 75, 80% making a decision. The third one, I think of it as like a signal to noise discipline. And it's what you hit on a little bit earlier. In my mind, it's really track fewer metrics, okay? 5 to 10 max. Review them more frequently. So some of those metrics could be like, hey, what will destroy us? Let me pay attention to it. But track less, review frequently, and then link every metric to a specific decision. If this happens, or if this metric shows this, what do we do next? So everything's got to be linked.
Yep.
Attention is such a scarce resource. And we know that with social media because they love the eyeballs. So we have to make sure we focus a team. The signal to noise discipline is going to be key. It's going to be more in 2020-30. The fourth one I think about is the operational model design. So finance can really be an architect and really like giving out who's decision right. So who's accountable. We can be more forward thinking about, hey, who's accountable for this decision? Then you think about like cadence of meetings, put meetings on the calendar. Okay, when should decisions be made? I know who's accountable, when should be made by. And then we have meetings as far as feedback loops. When are they going to happen? So I know a lot of times org charts, they don't really align the teams. It's just these operating models that do. And I know a lot of companies, they run off this EOS system, entrepreneurial operating system. I've used in the past. It works great. It's just a way of going about your daily routines to make sure everyone's in the loop. I would recommend it. And then the last one is really, as any CFO would tell you, trust as a currency. So trust is built in finance when we protect the value, not just the cost. We talked earlier about IT thinking that finance only wants to cut costs. We've got to show up and show that we're protecting the value. Also, we need to be able to share the context around that, not just conclusions. Okay, no, I'm cutting your budget by $100,000. Well, what's the context? Okay, ops and IT should get in a position where they trust finance judgment and logic behind that. So we want to be able to show more context. And then where I really think is that finance or the CFO of 2030 should show up early in the process. I know we mentioned Michael mentioned executive, sponsor, et cetera, but show up early, not just around approval time and say no or change paths. Like show up early, be involved, be the partner that you really need to be. So that's how to highlight, but I'll let Michael and Alfonso finish up this last question.
Wow, well said.
Mm-hmm.
Company-wide collaboration. So really nice points there, Thomas.
Yeah. Anything to add, Alonso?
Yes, he said it very well. I think the role of the finance people are ever changing, right? And towards 2030, I think with more automation, more AI, we're being able to simplify many of the finance activities. I've seen it myself, and not that we still have the same responsibilities, but there are ways to do it faster, quicker, more efficient. Many of the traditional things that we do in finance, from accounting, costs, whatever. I mean, cash management, investments, tax audit, and the list goes on and on and on. They're being simplified and creates the opportunity for us to get more involved in other areas. What I will say is that, like, if whatever your industry is, in my case, is manufacturing. I was in healthcare before, consumer goods. Whatever your industry is, get very in touch, very close to operations, understand operations, interact with operations all the time, in order to really understand and be a business partner to them. That's the skill that is going to make it they're going to make a difference. Is like when some people call it operational, CFO can call it in different ways, but definitely the idea is that for the CFO to step out of a kind of the traditional role or how the way it used to be, you become more of a business person, if you would, and be really involved with the business, and have all the other colleagues see you as a partner, and not as a controller, so to speak, or somebody that is just kind of a vigilante of the money of the company or the resources,
Mm,
but a true business partner that works hand to hand with the other areas to make the business grow, to achieve savings, to become more efficient, and that involves all the areas of the company. Thank you.
Yeah. Sounds really good. Let me just quickly, there were a couple really interesting audience questions that came in that I just want to kind of quickly get to. I know we don't have that much time, we have only 4 minutes left. One of the questions was, when budgets are tight but innovation is a non negotiable, how do you decide where to invest versus where to pull back? Mike, maybe I'll start with you, and then if you have any thoughts, and then we'll go around and see who else wants to jump in.
Sure. Yeah, you must continuously invest, just like I was saying, in people, process, and technology. We've done that from an ERP side, and then more recently with the FP&A module. I think just the return on investment, it's making the team's responsibilities more efficient, more effective. Um, Also, I think it's, more cutting edge. You're investing in the employees, which then I think, as I said earlier, leads in to good retention. Um, so, there's a lot of software out there. There's a competitive market, I think, which plays in favor of the end users, the companies as ourselves, from a cost perspective, which has worked out, as I said, it's worked out very well for us and been, worthwhile investments.
Perfect. We have only 2 minutes, so maybe I'll just quickly go to the next question, and then we can come back for our final thoughts, if that's okay with you guys. The other audience question was, how do we ensure financial planning doesn't live in a spreadsheet vacuum, but actually translates into operational execution? Thomas, I'll turn to you, and then Alonso and Mike, if you guys want to
yeah,
jump in.
sure. Sure, absolutely. How do we ensure that financial planning and or any metric doesn't live in a spreadsheet is we make it front and center. And we put it on dashboards around the business. We have TVs all over the place, paste on the dashboards. Every week you have a leadership meeting, you run down the list, and whoever's accountable for that metric says how that metric's doing versus the forecast and what they're going to do about it. So you might want to make it visual. You want to have an owner over each metric, and you want to talk about it at least weekly.
Yep. I agree. I mean, there's almost, we have to look at how do we keep the lights on, but what actually runs the business. So we have to kind of make it, not just about the numbers, but what actually helps the business. Alonso, Mike, anything to add?
Yes, I think the only thing I will add is that is again stress the importance for finance people to step a little bit out of their offices and get involved with the operations, understand what they're doing, and with the mentality that I come here to support you, to see how I can contribute, and at the same time understand what they're doing and how is the impact of the business. That's going to change completely the way that finance interacts. And maybe instead of spending too much time in Excel doing, maybe there's a process that you can learn, or maybe there's a task that is gonna an analysis that is gonna give you a much more and faster impact of the business that is
Yeah.
staying in your comfort level. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Yep.
well said. Putting accounting people, from
Yeah.
a finance perspective, putting them in the business, I think is
Yeah.
paramount for anybody's career.
Yeah.
versus to doing the normal course close, compiling financial statements, but really learning the business is really most important in FP&A roles within business segments.
Yeah, it's that translation of their operational metrics into dollars and learning how to speak that language, I guess. Right. Going back to the first analogy. Any last thought? Oh, we are out of time. So thank you, everyone. I just noticed. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry we ran out of time before final thoughts, but this was really insightful.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much for such an insightful panel discussion, and thank you everyone who joined us today. Our next session will begin shortly at 1:15 Eastern, so please click on the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you all so much again.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you now.
Bye-bye.